My roommate left her door open 6 nights. On the 7th, she came wearing only my shirt. The first 6 nights, I thought my roommate had simply forgotten to close her door. On the 7th night, I realized she had been leaving it open for me. And when she finally appeared in the hallway wearing nothing but my oversized shirt, holding back tears and staring at me like I was the only person left in the world she could trust, I understood that the open door had never really been an invitation. It had been a quiet cry for help. My name was Daniel, and I had moved into the apartment 3 months earlier after my life had fallen apart in ways I never talked about. I had lost my job, ended a long relationship, and spent weeks pretending I was fine whenever someone asked. The apartment wasn't luxurious, but it was affordable, quiet, and shared with a woman named Claire, who worked at a small children's bookstore downtown. We weren't close at first. We were polite strangers who split the bills, took turns cleaning the kitchen, and occasionally exchanged tired smiles over morning coffee. But there was something about Claire that made you notice when she wasn't okay. She had a softness in her eyes that seemed permanently covered by exhaustion. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the possibility that one small act can change someone's life, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. You never know who might be silently waiting for someone to notice. The first night, I noticed her bedroom door was open about 6 inches. I assumed she'd forgotten. I walked past it without thinking. The second night, it was open again. The third night, the same. By the fourth, I started wondering if it was deliberate. Claire was normally extremely private. She always closed her door, even when she was home alone. Yet every evening, around the same time, that door remained slightly open. I never looked inside. I didn't want her to feel watched. Instead, I began noticing little things. Her footsteps would move around the room, then suddenly stop. Sometimes I heard the faint sound of crying. Other nights, there was complete silence. Once, I found her sitting alone at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold. She quickly smiled and told me she couldn't sleep. I smiled back and pretended to believe her. On the 5th night, I left a mug of hot chocolate outside her door with a small note saying, "For the nights when sleep doesn't come." The next morning, the mug was clean, sitting beside my bedroom door. There was no note. But underneath it was a tiny paper heart. On the 6th night, I heard her crying again. This time, I almost knocked. My hand even reached toward the door. But I stopped. Sometimes people don't need questions. Sometimes they need the freedom to decide when they're ready to speak. The next morning, Claire finally told me her younger brother had been in an accident several months earlier. He had survived, but the medical bills had swallowed everything her family had. She had been working extra hours, sending money home, and pretending she wasn't exhausted. Then her boyfriend had left her, telling her he couldn't handle all the sadness. She had stopped trusting people after that. I listened without interrupting. When she finished, she apologized for telling me so much. I told her she didn't have to apologize for being human. She looked at me for a long moment, and something changed between us. We weren't strangers anymore. That evening, the 7th night, I was sitting on the couch when I heard her bedroom door open. I expected Claire to walk into the kitchen. Instead, she appeared in the hallway wearing my old oversized blue shirt, the one I had accidentally left in the laundry room. She had wrapped her arms around herself, and her face was wet with tears. She told me the power had gone out in her room because of an electrical problem, and she had been too frightened to stay there alone. She had borrowed my shirt because she had grabbed the first clean thing she could find. But then she stopped and admitted the real reason she had come out. She said she had been leaving her door open because she wanted to know that someone was nearby. That sentence broke my heart. She hadn't been trying to attract attention. She hadn't been playing some mysterious game. She had simply been scared, lonely, and too proud to ask for help. I gave her a blanket and sat on the opposite end of the couch. I didn't touch her or ask her to explain anything else. We simply sat there while rain tapped against the windows. After a while, she rested her head against the couch cushion and whispered that she couldn't remember the last time she felt safe. I told her she didn't have to figure everything out that night. For the first time in months, Claire fell asleep without locking herself behind a closed door. The next morning, we called the landlord about the electrical problem. Then we sat at the kitchen table and made a list of everything overwhelming her. Medical bills. Extra shifts. Family responsibilities. Her brother's recovery. Her own loneliness. One by one, we started looking for solutions. I helped her organize the paperwork. She helped me update my resume. I found a better-paying job a few weeks later, and Claire discovered that her bookstore was willing to increase her hours without destroying her health. Her brother's condition slowly improved too. But the biggest change wasn't financial. It was that Claire stopped pretending she was alone. Months later, the apartment felt completely different. There were plants on the windowsill, photographs on the refrigerator, and laughter coming from the kitchen again. Claire still had difficult days. So did I. Healing hadn't magically erased everything that happened. One evening, I came home and saw her bedroom door standing wide open. She smiled and said she had finally realized she didn't need to keep it closed anymore. I smiled back. The blue shirt she had worn that night was folded neatly on my chair. She had washed it, repaired a tiny tear near the sleeve, and left it there as a reminder. Not of romance. Not of something scandalous. But of the night two lonely people realized that sometimes the greatest second chance isn't finding someone to love you. It's finding someone who reminds you that you are worth staying for. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who might be quietly struggling, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support can help these stories reach someone who needs a little hope today. And before you go, leave a comment saying, someone should leave the door open for hope. You never know who might read those words on a difficult night and decide not to give up. Because sometimes an open door isn't asking you to walk through it. Sometimes it's simply saying, please don't let me feel alone. And sometimes, the person standing on the other side is waiting to discover that tomorrow can still be better than today.